Welcome back. Today we're testing the new Roto Grip RST X-2. If you like what we do, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe and check us out on Patreon. Alright, first impressions. Roto Grip has another decent shiny ASIM. Usually this formula works well, and the RST X-2 seems to do so. Okay, let's jump in. My first instinct when I see another shiny ASIM from Storm is, 1, we expect it to be good, and 2, is it going to be any different? In my making video where I introduced the RST X-2, I talked about it compared to the UFO Alert and the Rubicon UC2. So let's just talk about what we actually saw and then circle back. Oh, just one thing, I did mention the video is E-Trax Pearl, but to be more precise, it's E-Trax Plus Pearl, which is supposed to provide a bit more traction. Anyway, no big surprises really. This is clearly a mid-defined ball in the arsenal. I start fairly direct, it's fine, not worth starting so tight in the friction for me, as there's a touch over-under, but once I move into the track, the ball really comes into its own. I think the noticeable thing for me is this is a kind of long and strong in a sense, but really isn't quite the quintessential skid flip we typically see from Storm Roto Grip, perhaps because the cover does have a bit more underlying traction. It hooks, but not a huge snappy move down lane. I would say if you're looking for a bit more control and predictability, that is probably a good thing. For those looking for that typically sharper move, it probably makes sense to go with, say, a Rubicon UC2. This is a bit longer and later than the UFO Alert. I mean, slight, so it's definitely a really small delta, I would say. One surprise was that it really had a limit, not much past the third arrow from me, before it kind of just quit on me. I just didn't have enough giddy up or early enough read to make it up the hill. To be fair though, it really did have a very nice look in a relatively wide spot somewhere around the track. You don't have to be inch perfect. One of my initial thoughts was to knock off the shine, so I decided to do that to see how that looks, especially since I was just getting too much length past the third arrow. As I suspected, that tiny bit of an earlier read blended the edge of the pattern a little better. In the same zone, around the track, the ball still struck every time, but you could see a slightly earlier motion, which makes it look bigger down lane. With that said, it still didn't make it more usable from deeper in. I have to slow it down, but it was a little sensitive to speed variations, and I wasn't feeling, on enough to try to make it work just to show a few shots. Just a few shots for the UFO Alert, for a comparison, and truth be told, the difference is so slight that for me, it's one or the other. One didn't offer more than the other in my mind. Here's a look at me testing it two-handed, and as you would also expect, combine Storm's typical responsive pearls with a rev-dominant style, and you get pretty dynamic downlane motion. I had to be pretty deep to get this to work for me. I started around the fourth arrow, but I could tell right away that's going to be a nope. So I moved in several boards, eventually got lined up right around the fifth arrow. Again, if you're used to playing very deep, well, here you go. For all the angle that I wasn't able to generate one-handed, there's plenty here. I usually prefer not so sharp pieces for my two-handed game, but the RST X-2 acquitted itself just fine, giving me some different looks. Even while I was fairly inconsistent, I still carried pretty well. At the end of the day, there are lots of fans of the RST X1, and I think that will continue with the X2. It fits in the mid-defined category, so I guess you just need to decide your preference. I'm not seeing, say, having a UFO Alert and an RST X2 in the same bag, but I can see the Rubicon UC2 side by side with one of those two as a complement. It's clean and angular enough. With some friction or lower speed, the thing will hook a ton. I'll have a comparison video to give you a little more in-depth info on that soon.